Okay. So it says live. Okay. Cool. I hope people on YouTube can't see it. That's weird.
I know. Oh.
Anyway, I'm Stephanie Stewart.
I'm Andrea Pankary.
All right, so let's get started. I'll just say the questions and we can discuss them afterwards. So the first one is, what doctrine in Wilbur's heart drove him to advocate? Why is the doctrine of the family so important to have in your heart to be passionate and persistent? So I don't know really what got him started. I feel like I know that he was kind of started thinking about God and everything and what God wanted and for his children. And so I know he had personal experience with like the slave trade and stuff, because he relationship was to that blind guy. He like lived with him before or was close friends with him growing up. I don't know. That guy had personal experience with the slaves, and he had mentioned that he was haunted by slaves, and I think that's probably what got him thinking about, like, obviously that these are real people and they're not just property, and about that. So I think that's what got him started. That he realized like everybody deserves dignity and respect. And
So I answered the same, like I just put like God in big bold letters because like he is kind of like in the middle of the movie. He was talking about like how like it's just weird how everything like came together, and he's like, I just don't know, like I don't know why things are happening. And then he talked about like he went into like getting to know the slaves and like stuff, and like I think, you know, when you like serve others, you serve God, and so you see him in a different limelight. And I think that's the thing, is he started seeing like, oh, just because they're colored and like a different race, like they're still people just like I am. Just like he talked about, like they related it back.
mm-hmm.
And to go on, that says like, why is it important to have, like, why is the doctrine of the family so important to have in your hearts? I think my family drives me to be better because, so for instance, in my patriarchal blessing, it talks about like you'll bring honor to your name. And so I think for him, like he was probably like, oh man, like I have to do this for my family. Like, even though it really didn't, like, I guess there's a few parts that like kind of brought into family about him, but like it wasn't like my family story is this, my, you know. But I think in the back of his head he was thinking like, I know in the back of my head I'd be thinking like, am I doing the right thing? Like, would I do something that everyone's proud of me? And so for the passion and persistent to do that, like I feel like you have to have a drive. And so like obviously like to go to the temple now and be worthy now is my future drive to have my family and be still to them forever. Like that's my drive to like why I want to stay worthy. Like obviously we should stay worthy and like we should do things now.
Yeah.
But like it's like knowing like I can have my future family forever, because like even though I'm not dating, it's just like you see what it is and you see your family now and you want it later. Like that's how I think of it as.
Yeah. And like to go along with that, with the family, like when he started, he wasn't married or anything, but I think like if you really think about it, if I were in his position, I'd be like, well, do I want my kids and to learn from me that I don't treat everybody with respect, that I treat people as objects, and I don't know, there's just like a certain amount of pride that goes along with owning people, you know, like slaves. And I wouldn't be proud of that. I wouldn't feel good about that, even though everybody's doing it. Like I don't know. I think that would bother me if you're really thinking about what God wants for you and how it wants for you to act.
Yeah. Well, and I think with being like an advocate, like, because I'm doing my internship at the Rexburg Family Crisis Center, and a lot of the people that come in there like have been abused for like years, and so like taking that first initial like, no, this isn't right, is often the hardest part. But I think that's part of being an advocate. Like, you have to stand up for like what is right, even though everybody's doing the opposite. So you have to like, obviously, I don't know, with family, like, you have rules and you have things like, you have like things to be kind, but like obviously little kids learn, like, if they go to school and they're being like bullied and stuff, like, or they are doing the bullying, like, they're taught not to do that, but like they're not going to be like, oh, I'm doing this, it's just like breaking out of that mold. I guess, to be
it's a big deal now because everybody, it seems like the very vocal people are anti-family or anti-religion, I guess, and they're the vocal ones, and so it kind of seems like everybody's doing it, but we just have to,
exactly. And I think it's oftentimes that people don't, like, it's the people that don't know the truth that are always like, yeah, I know what's going on, or they seem to act like they know more, but they like don't understand, I guess.
Yeah, no, so true. It's like opinionated, but with no, nothing to back it up.
Yep.
Exactly.
Exactly.
All right. Here, let's go on the second question. How did Wilbur employ a theoretical approach to become a more effective advocate? Identify at least one thing in each system and be specific.
So,
Yeah, go for it.
Is it the meso system? Which one is that?
That's
the interactions, isn't it? That's the one that's interaction. So like for that one, for like my
in microsystem, mesosystem. Hold on, let me look at it.
Maybe.
Oh, the interactions between each of the systems. Yeah.
So that one, I thought about like how that one like helped him to be more effective. Is like he had interactions with everyone, and so like which woman was it that he was like walking through the gardens with her, and she's like, see, we do disagree with something, or I don't even remember her name. I can't remember now. But like, to me, that's where it like came to his head, like, oh my gosh, I'm passionate about this. So for him to become an advocate, like, that's when he realized like something's got to change. Something, like, I have to stand for something.
Right. What I put was for the so the macro system, the like very outer one. He was trying to change the macro system, so he was trying to change the values, laws, and customs of everybody around him and the government. And so he used his microsystem, like the smallest one, the immediate people in his influence, for support. And like he started his like close friends and everything. He used them to start, I guess I'm gonna call it the resistance, and then he used them to help influence the exosystem, everybody else, not even within his circle of influence, and reach out to them to get like people to sign the petition and stuff like that. And he used that he used like that one guy, I don't know who he was, that had like major influence, and he signed the petition at the end, and everybody was freaking out. He used him influence everybody else in the exosystem and to change the macro system. So it was just all related.
Exactly. Well, with the macro system, like, we're taught that it's like your environment. Like, your environments determine who you are. And so I think you're right, where like he tried to change the environment. Like, and I thought it was cool because he you know, he could have ignored like a lot of, like, he could have just been one of those advocates who was like, yeah, I just want to change this, but I'm going to do it from my own comfort of my home. Like, no, he got out, he went on the ship, and he was like, he talked to this, was it the slave that was on the ship? And he was like, no, like, you shed blood and tears and you sweat down here and you like you do all these things. I think that's like super important to be an advocate. Like, so you have to have so many hours to be like an adult advocacy, and so you can go into the homes and like pick up mothers like after they've been abused or the situation and stuff. And I guess I personally haven't like realized that until I was sent to one of the homes with another girl, and then I was like, oh my gosh, like I just seen them in the comfort of the office. Like I thought, like, you know, I didn't understand until I like went to the homes, and I was like, oh, this is so different. And I think that's really something that like changed him to be like an effective advocate, was he was like willing to go out there and look for it, I guess.
Yeah, and he had some like connection to it that drove him. And he had other people like relying on him at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Didn't like one family call him like a king or something? They said he's coming for us.
Oh yeah.
Okay. How did Wilbur and his fellow advocates do and share their research? What evidence did they provide to persuade those opposing or on the fence? I don't really have anything specific except for the fact that I like put they did their own research and they went out and got experience, like you said. They went on the boat and everything, and so they could persuade everybody that opposed them by saying, no, we've seen this firsthand, this is what's happening. And so it can like hit them to their like hit their emotions too, and so persuade them in that way. But I don't know,
exactly.
They just had eyewitnesses, and they themselves went out and experienced what slaves experienced.
No, I agree with that. Do you remember the part where they like were in the courthouse? Well, I guess it was a courthouse. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was a court. And they said like, will you go get my driver or whatever? And he was black, and he like came in and stuff, and like the one guy was just like backed up, and he was like, what, have you never seen like someone of different like ethnicity being in the court? Like why is it fair? And like, I don't know. I thought that was cool because like they brought someone into the place like where they weren't supposed to be, and I don't know. I felt like that was super important because they like realized like, why is it that he has to stand outside and listen, or why can't he be in this room? Like I think they like, I feel like that was the first initial like, I don't know, kind of slap in the face, I want to put it, to like all of them, like, oh wow, I guess they like didn't realize like he has to stand outside. Like, why is that right? I don't know.
Right.
I felt like that part was kind of interesting because
little, yeah, no, that makes sense. Just little like things, just little action. I don't know what I'm going to say.
No.
But just taking action in little steps makes like slowly change their perspective, I guess.
Exactly. Well, and they just like, I should pull up this transcript, but he just like made a comment. He was like, why is he any less scary than you are? Like, he's a human. And I was like, ooh, ouch.
If anything, he's more, or you guys are more scary than him because you're horrible people. But.
Exactly. No, that little judge. I don't even know if he was a judge. He was a tiny little guy. I just giggled so hard because his power just like went to his head. I was like, they picked like the right person to play that role.
I know. I feel like he's always like a bad guy. Seems.
Oh, that's good.
Dude, I hate that guy. It's just he's a good actor, and he makes you hate him.
Yeah.
Okay. For question number 4, how does the film portray the importance of working together as a group? What has family advocacy group work taught you? I said that we all have different strengths and circles of influence that we can reach, that we need each other to be completely effective. God made us so that we're not perfect, so that we rely on Him and other people around us for that reason. So, like, for example, in the movie, he had, I don't know any of their names. I don't know their positions, so it's kind of hard. But he had all of his friends and people that were close to him use their strengths to push the work along. And like the blind guy, he also used his eyewitness account, or like account that he was having him write down for the cause as well. So everybody can participate. And then that one guy that showed up randomly, like, I have an idea, we need to go about this differently, and like wanted them to pass that law about the flags on the ships and stuff. Yeah, he was the one who came up with that idea, so it was important to have other perspectives.
No, that's so true. Like, I was just thinking about it and I was like, okay, obviously with more people, like, you're gonna get more done. Like, and I feel like he got a lot done by himself. Like, he started it, but like with everyone else, like with the blind man and this, it like just brought so much more to the table. I feel like that they all had such different experience with slavery that when it came together, like, it was so strong. And I, like, this is a really weird reference, but I think about testimony meetings, and like one person can share a testimony, it can be so strong, but it's like everybody else's testimonies that come together to like support each other that makes like the spirit so strong. Or like Release Society lessons, when like you talk about a certain topic and it's like a good topic, but then everybody like pitches in a personal story and they're all so different, then it makes it like come together and you're like, oh wow, like this is so much more than like I would have thought, you know?
Yeah, no,
so
that's perfect.
Yeah, I thought about our group, and like we all like we came from so many different places. Like, I'm in Idaho, you're in Utah, Emily was in Arizona. Like we all came from such different places that like
Life experiences.
Yeah, exactly. That like, and we're all different age. Like, you and me are younger, like Emily's older, and like some are married, some aren't married, some have kids, like some are just barely going back to college. Like, so I feel like we all come from different walks of life, but like in our discussions, like we got so deep because we did realize, like, just because like you have a brother that is going through a different trial than my brother, or you know, we just like some of the debates, like we were just talking about different debates and like different time eras, like everybody just, I don't know. I felt like it made our group so much stronger throughout the semester because we all brought different things.
Mm-hmm. So no, that's perfect.
I feel like that helped.
Mic drop. I got nothing else to say to that.
Okay.
Perfect. Moving on. Okay. What parallels do you see between Wilbur and Captain Moroni in Alma 46? What is a Christian and professional family advocate, and how did Wilbur exemplify that? How can you be effective and Christ-like against such loud and often degrading voices? There are like 5 questions in that.
Yeah.
Well, for the first one, what parallels do you see between Wilbur and Captain Moroni? I just said that he's doing God's work. He was doing it for no personal gain, and he was, I'm sure he was praying to God a lot. I mean, I know that he mentioned him, but he was, he says faith was slowly coming back to him, and he had charity and was doing it for cause of the people and for the slaves, and yeah, which I think is what a Christian and professional family advocate is because he's doing it out of love for God's children. And he was effective because he kept his cool. He had that love and charity. So he was just trying to get people to understand his perspective, and he wasn't like, he didn't hate people that didn't believe the same thing. Yeah.
No. Good. Well, I just talked about like in Moroni 7, it just talks about how like, or not Moroni, Alma, sorry. It talks about Moroni, but it's anyways. He had to rise, like they both had to like rise to the occasions. Like they were both put in a hard situation, and like that's what I talked about, like their parallels, just like you talked about, they like both had to do God's work. And so like when it came down to it, they had to like lean on their faith, even though like their faiths weren't like the strongest. And like he talked about like, he was like in a church or something he was talking about, and he made the comment, the old guy made the comment, he said, God won't give you trials just like a storm in your face. He'll give it teardrops at a time, and then it'll roar or something like that. Like he commented it so good that I was like, oh my gosh, I need to remember that. Like we got sprinkles of the trial, and then the storm erupted. Like it just doesn't happen. Like things lead up to it. Like, and that means like we have to prepare ourselves for that big thing, which his was, like he talked about, it just like didn't come back. It like trickled back his faith. So right. Like when it did erupt, and like he had to stand for the truth of like slavery is not right. Like you guys can't do this. Mm-hmm. Like he had that, his faith was so much stronger because he did have those little glimpses come back to him, I guess.
Right.
And it just talks about like what is Christianity. Like obviously it's the true believers. It's the people that will stand up for the truth and for what is right. And I just talked about how both of those, like Moroni and him, did stand for the truth even though it was hard. So
okay. Marcia Barlow spoke on persuasive speaking and writing. Did Wilbur and others exemplify any of Marcia's ideas? How so? I just said that they hit their emotions, and they had their own research, so they had ways to back up what they were saying, and they firsthand accounts, and I think a really effective way that he went about persuading people is when he had all those rich people on the boat, and he like stopped the boat and was like, you smell that? That is death, that is disease. And that really got them to experience firsthand like the torture and suffering that the slaves went through. And I think that those people on the boat were probably like changed forever after that. So that's all I wrote.
Well, exactly. It's so bad because I just like related everything back to class because I'm like, okay, obviously this class is for paper. But I just wrote, we talked about a lot about this in class in the debates and persuasive speeches also, that the passion and emotion that you use when you're trying to get it across the point often is a seller, and that others have to see. Like, so just like you talked about, like he stopped the boat and he was like, you're in their shoes now. Like, picture yourself in your shoes. What would it be like? Like, and do you remember those, when we had to watch those 2 videos about, was it gay rights or something like that, or marriage or raising children? I don't remember. And that one kid was like, I was raised by 2 mothers and I went to Yale and I did this and I did that. And the other kid was like, he was just like so dead, and he's like, read from his paper and was like, and I am raised by 2 parents and I'm good. Like, it was just so dead. But I felt like, you know, just because he did like use the persuasive speech of like, I know this is true, like build emotion. It worked for him.
Yeah, personal testimony that they can't argue.
Exactly.
All right. What role did the government, policy, and religious freedom play in the fight of the slave trade? Did you see their political system being pro-family? Why or why not? Yeah. I don't know. Do you want to go first? I don't have much for this.
So I just put government sets the rules. Policies are the reasons why slaves can be free, and religious freedom show that love that others do not have. So government obviously is the reason things are the way they are. Like, it's like the set in stone. Like, that's how I kind of explained it. And the policies are like what goes into it. And then I explained like religious freedom. Like, obviously religious freedom, we have the chance to believe whatever we want. Just like he did, like he could believe that slavery wasn't right. And like he knew that. And so when it comes into like them being pro-family, and like he was just like, these, like, what makes them different? Like, obviously, so he was using, how do I say, he was using the policies in the government that was there of like slavery is okay, but using like his religious freedom to be like, this, like, what you don't understand, what isn't in these laws, that like these people are people, just like, doesn't matter which color they like are. So I could see that being pro-family because of those reasons, but also it's just hard because I don't know how it's hard because their government believes something else during that time, but because of him, they seen what was right. So it's like the government had a standard, but because of religious freedom, they changed those standards and those government laws and policies because of the religious freedom. I don't know. That's kind of how I explained it.
Because it says, how did the religious freedom play? What role did religious freedom play in the fight of the slave trade? And I think you got that like perfect, because that his religion and his faith is what drove him in the first place to start this fight for the slave trade. And I bet you that God had a hand in this. Like, there's no way he didn't.
Oh yeah.
That is his children, and that's what he used. He used Wilbur to push his work along. And so I bet you that like he had, when he was explaining his personal testimony or his like experiences, I bet that God like sent the Spirit to testify truth to everybody that he was talking to, if they were willing, if they had their mind open. So that's how I would say religious freedom played a role, because had he not been able to be religious, then that wouldn't have sparked his interest in the slave trade. Yeah.
Well, exactly. No, I think that's good.
Oh. Do you feel that Wilbur used his time on Earth well? How did you see him showing the elements of consecration that Elder Christopherson spoke of?
So I just said yes. Like, you know, it's all like, we're here to be tested, obviously, and like Elder Christopherson like spoke of was it the 5 elements or something like that? The purity, work, respect, service, and integrity. Like, if you thought about, like, he served others, like, obviously in this whole situation, like, we don't see the beginning of his life and where he came from. Like, I mean, we didn't see where he came from. Like, we just didn't see that part of his life. We didn't see how he grew up. We didn't see any of that. So like, I mean, oftentimes I think our testimonies are kind of challenged, and I mean, we're tested. That's why it's a testimony. Like, and so he was I mean, I don't know if I would have been able to stand up to everybody else. Like it's hard. So I feel like for him, he did pass his test. Like obviously he did the work that God, like he did the work he was sent here to do, which is to stop slave trade and like realize everybody is a child of God. So I thought that was cool. And so with Elder Christopherson, like he worked, he served others, he had integrity, like he showed those attributes to like be a disciple of God. So that's how I put it.
Yeah, yeah. And then I also said that I thought it was interesting that he got sick, and like I thought he was gonna die. Honestly, I was like,
Yeah,
right. But even though he got sick and was like bedridden half the time, he found a cause to push forward, and I think that's why he got better, is because he didn't have like a pity party and was like, well, I'm done.
yeah,
He was like so concerned for the cause, and I think that's why he was given a second chance at life, even just because he got better. It was like 2 years later, and he was better. He had a kid and a wife, and like a better support system. And I think God blessed him because he was still working, and he never stopped. He just kept pushing through.
yeah. Agreed.
All right, question 9. Any other profound thoughts or personal insights from the movie that are related to child and family advocacy?
So a comment was made that says, just make sure you're in the world and not of the world. I started laughing so hard when that comment was made because I was like, oh my gosh, they quoted this before. Like, I don't know, I just love that comment because it's like, it was the guy in the church and I cannot remember his name. I wanted to say it was like John Newton or something. I do not remember.
Yeah.
Was it Newton? Or I don't know. I do not know. But anyways, he said it. He was like mopping the floor too.
Did he write Amazing Grace? Like,
I think so.
That's what it sounded like he said. He wrote Amazing Grace.
Okay. Yeah. But anyways, that was my personal thought. Just because he comments like, just make sure you're in the world, not of the world. And I don't remember who quoted it in their talk, but I mean, that's one of the most famous scriptures now. If you like quotes now is like, just because there's technology in the world, blah, 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 there's this and that. Like, remember the importance of why we're here. It's not like, don't spend your time on the computers. Don't, we're here to grow. We can't take our technology when we die. We can't take this. We can't take that. But we can take our knowledge.
Yeah.
And so I feel like relating that to family, like advocacy, like, I think a big thing is just like remembering our purpose, like remembering why we are really staying here. Like it's fun to do the things we're doing, but like we're sent here to have a family. We're sent here to teach. We're sent here to do these things. And that we get distracted and we lose sight of like what's important.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I thought was like my personal insight from the movie. Like, I mean, we have to stand for the truth of the family. Like we have to stand up for children. I don't know.
Yeah. And I couldn't help but think about Joseph Smith during this movie, and just that he was completely selfless. He was doing God's work. He was, tortured, and people like hated him. Everybody was against, like a lot of people were against him. And he had to use his small support system to push through and like touch people, even though it was like super inconvenient for him, and his family members were dying, and friends and things like that. So
awesome. No, I think you're
from both of them, that our sacrifice that we have to make is probably never going to get that big, but we can make a big difference still.
Yeah.
Lives of everybody, even if it's just one person. We can change generations by changing one person,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, and just like to add off of that, like I did not realize how lucky I was. Like I'm only an hour away from Rexburg, like, and I grew up here like my whole life. But I graduated with more kids from seminary than I did from high school. And so to me, like drugs did not happen in my school. Like we didn't like that just like was not there. And so like you said, like the challenges that they had are not our challenges. And like I think that's God's hand. Like he put us where he knew we could like be, I guess.
Yeah.
But like I think that's one way it's changed. Like I don't know. It's just it's so different. And it goes into like the second question, like, or question number 10 of like, what was your understanding of the doctrine of the family at the beginning of the semester versus how it is now? Like, I didn't know anything. Like, I'll be honest, like I just went to college and I was like, yeah, I want to do something that's like good for the family. But like this semester has really hit me like with the door of like, there's so much more out there in the world like you do not understand, Andy. Like you have to stand as a witness of like God. Like it's just crazy how many more trials there is than we have ever knew, I guess.
Right.
But even though the video was like years and years and years and years ago, like most of the stuff we can relate to today. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I agree with that going into 10. Like, they're, like you said, we have to sin. And because there's so many temptations and so many things that are like going against the family, like so many things that tempt everybody, and everybody thinks like, well, if I do this, it's not going to affect anybody else. But it absolutely affects everybody. And because there's so many temptations, so many things in this world that are fighting against family, we don't have a choice. I mean, we have to. Like, if we don't stand for the family, like, who else will? I mean, we have to be God's hands. And I think that's just kind of what has, like, changed in my perspective as well, because it's terrifying to think that we are the ones that are going to have to do this, but we do. Like, that's our purpose, and that's why we were placed on this earth at this time, is to fight against evil. So, last one. Picture your spouse and children and write down some thoughts on how they will benefit from you taking this class. Okay, well, I don't think, if you want to share, I haven't written that one yet.
Well, I just talked about with like my future family, like I feel like I've grown so many ways from taking this class. Like I have a better understanding of like I have to stand for the family. And so teaching, I mean, I don't know. I'm 22. I'm not married. Like I'm not even dating anyone right now. So like with having the chance to like grow, I feel like before I have children, like it's going to act like it's just going to benefit my kids all the way. Like I'm going to have an understanding of like the world is hard. It's a hard place to grow up in. Like, so I feel like I'm going to be like more patient and more understanding with my kids. And like, I'm going to be aware of like the things that my children are going through. And, like they're going to benefit like spiritually. Like I know for a fact, like we talked about, like, because of Joseph Smith, like he stood for the truth, and he, like, spiritually, I feel like I lean more on Heavenly Father now that I am older because of this class, because of other classes I took from being at BYR. Like, my testimony is a million times more stronger than it ever has been. So I'm going to be in that place, like, when my children come, of like, no, the church is true. Like, I've seen it. I've heard the testimonies, because I mean, we heard the testimonies just like anybody else. Like, I mean, I feel like that's one way I'll benefit, is spiritually mentally I understand, and like physically I'm prepared. I'm prepared for what is to come.
Yeah.
So
no, I like that. Like, to add on to what you said, like, we can't live in a bubble, and I think that's hard with children. Not try to shelter them enough. Like, of course, we don't want them to be hanging out with kids that do drugs and stuff like that. But by taking this class and like seeing the research and why we believe what we do as a church, we have research to back it up. We have like logical reasons. It's not just we're trying to brainwash people. And
yeah,
because and as long as we're keeping updated on the issues in the world and what our children are going through, then like you said, we can help them and be like, well, this is why I know that the church is true, and this is why we believe what we believe in. Instead of being as parents or kids ask questions and you can just kind of shut them down or make them feel like dumb or sinful for asking it, which does not teach or help them at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amen. I agree. 100%.
Our families do this class. Good.
Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome. We did it.
And 15 minutes too.
Yeah.
Solid. Okay, cool.
Awesome.
All right, well, I'm going to stop this broadcast and I hope that it saves. No pressure.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
Have a good, congrats on graduating.
Thanks. Good luck with your next semester and everything.
Thanks. Okay, see you later.
Bye.
Okay, bye.